Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. This is my first time at the summit, so super excited to be here. Have had a fantastic time. We are a bit compressed for our topic, so I'm going to keep it relatively short, and we discussed it ahead of time, and I think we're giving a bit of a past, present, and future view of what it means to be an executive and how we got there. So I think I'll start with Miriam.
Hello.
Hello. Do you want to do a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I'm the VP of Engineering at a company called Skills. It's a mobile tournament platform for games. Started working there about 4 years ago as a lead engineer for our player matching system.
And Miriam, as you think about your path to becoming an executive and a leader, what stands out to you as some of the most sort of critical factors for getting there?
For me personally, I love building products, and what I was finding is that I was getting a bit fed up kind of with the pace, with the decision-making process, and I was trying to wait for people to do the right thing and not ruffle feathers. But one day I just woke up and realized that could never happen, and I'm kind of wasting time here. So I decided to kind of step into more and more leadership roles and find that, by doing that, you can actually 10x your efforts into building a product if you are able to then build the right teams, empower the right people, and kind of get the things that you really wanted to begin with done by yourself.
Awesome. Terry, tell everybody about yourself a little bit.
So I'm a Terry Albrella, and I work for Prudential, and I'm the VP of Enterprise Architecture. And I think sometimes you think Prudential is a very old conservative company, but I'm really proud to be there in the role that they take in supporting both women and LGBTQ.
Fantastic. So we're moving into the present part of the discussion. So as you think about your sort of day-to-day now, what do you think are the skills that really sort of define what it means to be an executive, and in particular, a successful one?
So I think it's more, and we've heard it throughout the sessions, empowering people, and it's more about creating that team and empathizing with your team and really taking away the roadblocks from what's in the way from making them successful. So if everyone on my team is successful, then I'm successful by default. So I think it's more about empowering, listening to people, empathizing with the situations that they're in, and letting them be the best selves that they can be so that they can bring their work and their best work to what they're doing.
Ronnie.
Hi.
Hey. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Urbis. I work at Oracle in our public cloud division, and I'm responsible for all of the customer commitments that we make to Oracle's public cloud customers. We have over 100,000 customers on the Oracle public cloud platform. It's a $2 billion business and growing for us.
Fantastic. So as you think about being a leader into the future, being an executive and the executives that you see, what do you think are the sort of biggest challenges out there facing future leaders, and how are they trying to approach them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that leadership has really gone from a command and control to a more, how do we develop well-rounded leaders who can create a culture within our environment that we want to see, that all of us here want to see. We're all here, we're unified by our common experiences at work. I'm sure at one point or another in your careers, in our careers, we know what it feels to be marginalized at work. And I think that the future of leadership and what I work with my managers and what my managers work with me on is how do we create a culture moving forward that is truly inclusive, that empowers the folks on our team, that really gives them the space to be who they want to be, who they really are versus who they think we want them to be. And this need to create this culture is really both our opportunity as leaders, and also an imperative for us as leaders. And whether or not you're a manager or you're a VP, or it doesn't matter what managerial role you have in your organization, I think that this is a really excellent time for us to do something transformational moving forward in leadership, not just incremental. So, and I think it's so important. We need to really create a momentum about how we lead and about the culture we create for people we work with, and how we learn from each other. And the yield of this type of leadership moving forward is going to be societal change. I truly believe that we can help each other and teach each other on how to treat each other well. Yeah. And really the dividend is commercial success for the organizations that we're part of. It's going to come down to the kind of dividend, the bottom line that we're able to generate for our companies, really while we enrich the workplace for ourselves. And I think it's an amazing opportunity that's ahead of us.
So quick, I'm curious, so folks left in the audience, raise your hand if you either are an executive or work for executives that look like us. Okay. Proving my point a little bit, I don't see a ton of hands up out there. So I know there was some discussion on some of the panels yesterday around sort of representation, and I'm curious just to hear thoughts around, we've been sitting, from my perspective, at this sort of 15 to 20%, if we're lucky, of at least women, or sort of identified women in leadership positions in corporate America. How do we break through that? And what can people in this room do, whether they're executives now, hope to be, or just leaders on the ground in the way they are? What can they do to help change that?
I would suggest making sure that you have a team that supports you. So whether you don't need to have just one mentor. Maybe you have a mentor that's specific for a skill that you want to develop, or a specific for an area that you would like to get into. Beyond having a team of mentors, also having a sponsor is really important, because you need that one person or people that can advocate for you and be that voice that you may not be in the room to support you. So I think it's important to have that whole team of support around you, and it's up to you to basically build that team for yourself.
For me, I also like to be really intentional about my time and who I spend mentoring and who I push forward, right? When you're selecting the next lead for a specific project, I want to make sure that someone who isn't volunteering is still a person that you call out and say, hey, do you want to do this? Is this something that interests you? I will support you in this if you want to do it. And just kind of being really intentional and remembering what it was like back then, and how if people don't speak up on their own, pushing them a little bit and being supportive.
Yeah, and one of the things I think I've learned is that regardless of who you think is watching you or looking at you or judging your performance, it's all the things that you do when no one is watching. It's true. It's all the things that you do on a day that you think, oh, it's just another day at the office, just another grind of a day. But it's the things that you do to be true to who you are, and to be respectful of everybody who works with you and for you and perhaps above you. And just being consistent and being, just the hard work, the diligence, the consistency, holding your your professional ethical compass always set right is going to lead you to a path that I think will encourage other women around you to be like you, and you not just rise, you're just not, rising up, but you're kind of pulling everybody with you with that type of confidence and attitude. And I like to see, I think, just more of that in all of us, including me.
So something else that I find as kind of a consistent theme in the stories of the leaders, and in particular the female leaders in my life, is I failure, failure or challenge or struggle, and having to persevere over that. So I'm curious how you think about how that's affected your paths and advice you would give to folks as they encounter that along theirs.
So I would suggest don't ever be afraid of failing, because I think if you ever have failure as one of the things that you're thinking of when you go into something, then that's going to hamper you from moving forward. So be prepared for it in a way that I can be honest and I can admit when I fail, but I'm not going to let it stop what I'm going to take an appropriate risk to doing something. So I think it's moving forward and not letting it be, not being afraid of the failure, but moving past it. But then if you do fail, you can just learn from it, be honest and admit what you're doing, and then move forward.
I grew up playing a ton of video games, and for me, failure was just like, oh yeah, just try again.
Reset,
Like,
hit the reset button.
no rage
right?
quitting, right? If you want that personal satisfaction of completing something, you got to not rage quit. And so for me, I find that failure is closely tied to resilience, and that's a really great quality to have. And so I would not walk away from like an opportunity to fail. You should probably take it, and if you fail, try again.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I think that what's common with almost everybody in this room here is that we got here because we took some risks. Personal risks, professional risk. We kind of just owned who we are, and that was risky for each of us. Each of your experience is unique, but that's what ties us all together. So I think personally, we all know what it feels like just to be scared to take the next step, to be scared to fail. But you're still here. That tells me that you didn't give up, and that tells me that we all have more resilience and persistence than most people out there. So here it is.
So we're sitting here at the fifth one of these. 5 years from now, what do we think or hope are the topics that we're talking about in terms of leadership and growth in this community?
I would like to see it be more about, there's many executives here and you're just sharing all your success stories. So how did you empower someone, and how did you watch them bloom and grow, and then you sat them on the stage next to you? I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think we're headed towards a more interconnected world. And, it won't be so U.S.-centric. Hopefully, in 5 years, technology is kind of just speeding up those, global relationships, global workforces. So I'm hoping, the types of problems we're discussing 5 years from now are like, how do you make meetings that don't suck with different time zones, and, things like that, where we're all collaborating and working closely on a global level.
That's a good one. 5 years from now, I want to see more women. I want to see more women in technology. I want to see more women in leadership. I have 2 daughters. They're teenagers. My daughters are both in their high school wrestling team, girls wrestling team. Yeah. And, whenever I say that to somebody at work or in live, they're like, oh, really? Wrestling for girls? I want it to be just the same as you would think wrestling is for boys. My daughter is a trumpet player in a jazz band, and she's one of the only girls who play trumpet. I want more women trumpet players out there. Yeah, I want there to be more women in my management team. I want to be able to put out a job ad, and I want more women to apply. I want them to come to Oracle. I want them to come because they believe that they have an equal chance of doing anything that a man can do in technology and more.
I also have 2 daughters. They're much younger. They're 4 and 2, but I often think about kind of,
Wrestling.
They want to wrestle?
They wrestle plenty, as it is. They wrestle plenty, as it is. So I guess just one parting thought. So as you think about yourself and your own sort of leadership path, what's sort of the number one thing on your agenda of what you're trying to develop in yourselves, in your teams, in your businesses? What's your next big kind of mountain to climb or challenge?
I think some of the themes that we've heard, bring more women in, bring more people in that can be the future role models for the next generations that are coming in. Because we need to have people that look like us in those high-level roles so that people say, I can do that.
Same, removing subjectivity from hiring is one of my personal goals.
My goal, and something I'm working on, is what is my professional ethical compass to understand what it is. I feel that a lot of leaders I see across the board in my industry and outside somehow feel that when they reach the executive ranks, that the usual rules don't apply to them. And I think that that's an issue. I think it's very topical. You just have to open, any news article these days to read about the state of that in the world today. So I think that the more we focus on what our internal ethical compass is, the better we will make our communities and our societies and our families.
Awesome. I think we're out of time, but thank you guys so much.